get involved. My key takeaway is get involved and assess your brand. And I think don't look at the gaps that you see in AI as a problem necessarily. Look at them as an opportunity to improve the way that your brand is communicated online, to improve the way that your brand is visible online, to build more connections with users, and to build more bridges to your domain and your business. Hi, my name is Crystal Carter, and this is SEO in 2026.
Crystal, what's your number one SEO tip for 2026?
My number one SEO tip is that you should be using AI search optimization to deliver value across your business and your whole digital footprint.
Okay, across your business. So what do we mean by across your business? Because I guess AI search optimization is still some form of optimization that we associate with being SEO. So what does across the business look like?
Well, I think one of the things that's really come to fore with the emergence of AI search optimization, with the emergence of, LLMs as a channel that people are using, and as it grows, is that the importance of multi-channel marketing, the importance of an omnichannel presence is, very, very acute. So we see that LLMs like ChatGPT, Perplexity, Claude, etc., Gemini are surfacing content from across the web. It's not just what's on your website. It's what's happening on Reddit. It's what's happening on YouTube. It's what's happening on Instagram even. And that means that you need to think about the whole of your digital presence in order to move forward. So some people say, oh, it's the same as SEO. And it's like, well, potentially. And ideally, they should absolutely complement each other in the same way that YouTube optimization should complement your core SEO activities. But they also can help you to identify gaps in the information that's known across the web about your business.
That's an intriguing insight that AI search optimization is optimizing for multiple different platforms, because obviously AI takes the information from whatever platform they think is most relevant, most suitable, most authoritative for what they're actually trying to spit out. So does this differ depending on the industry that we're talking about there? Do we have to research our competitors to see what platforms are most successful for them and try and mirror what seems to be successful for other big players out there?
I think it's important to look at the sources for these queries. So they will vary for the types of queries. So for instance, if somebody's looking up, best microwave, for instance, then a lot of the LLMs will pull out review sites. So they'll pull out big lists of reviews as some of their core training data, as sort of their core training sources and citation sources. And this means that if you haven't been investing in, getting your product out there and getting it reviewed by some of these key players, then you're probably not going to be visible there. There's other types of queries, for instance, informational queries. If you were trying to be, top of mind for people who are doing informational queries about data heavy topics or, heavy consideration topics, then it might be that you need to, shore up some of your data kudos and make sure that you've got, good core information on your website. And additionally, if you have a general larger brand, you might want to think about your entity and how your entity is represented on, sites that have, entity management, like Wikipedia, for instance, because that is a core training data location. So I think that that's something that's really, really important. So when you're thinking about how you position yourself in all of these, it's not just about copying what other people are doing. It's also about making sure that you are present where users are going to be looking for you, that you are present where the LLMs are going to be looking for information about you. You do want to be competitive, obviously, but it's important to be involved. So, a classic example is Reddit. So people have been suddenly very interested in Reddit since LLMs have, been big players in search and information discovery. If you want to be involved in that, you have to be, genuinely committed to that process, because even if you're just posting a few times, you do have to post, respond, monitor that conversation ongoing, and you will get better action if you are more entrenched in those channels. So you can't just sort of half-heartedly go about it. You have to get involved. And that's something that, on the one hand, you could say, well, we're trying to be in there because our competitors are being in there, but you're also being in there because users are there as well. So users are there asking questions, ChatGPT is there looking for answers because users are there asking questions. You should be there to satisfy the users who are there anyway, to satisfy search, because search is also looking at Reddit, and to also satisfy the LLMs.
Okay, so you have to know what you want to represent as a brand. So what comes first? Is it actually deciding as a brand what you want to represent? Is it understanding the keyword universe for your particular brand that you want to attempt to display what you're offering underneath those different keyword phrases? Is it maybe understanding your audience first? Which step comes first?
The first step I always recommend is that people have a look at how urgent this is for you. So LLMs and AI search agents are emerging as a source of information and a source of information discovery. And this means that some people are on it and some people are not on it. So in the AI Search Lab on Wix Studio, we have a great article from Rand Fishkin, which talks about how to measure whether or not your audience is even using ChatGPT, for instance. So I think the last time I checked it, ChatGPT and the other AI search agents had around 6 billion visits in I think it was August. And, that's a big number, but Google's pulling in, 80, 82, 84, 83 billion every month. And so everybody's not on it. So you should check that the market is actually with you. So if the market is there, then you want to check that. A great example is if you look up programming, for instance, on SparkToro, then you'll see that lots of people who are interested in programming are also on ChatGPT, and they're using it as a regular tool. If you look up potatoes, then you won't see ChatGPT in the top 7 results. It's not something that the potato people are interested in particularly. So
The potato people.
exactly. So this is something that you should be aware of. So have a look at whether or not, how fast you need to move. Have a look at at that information, where your audience is, so that you can see, the total addressable market in that regard. So have a look at that. Also have a look in your data. We have an AI visibility overview tool at Wix, and that's built into the CMS, and it allows you to see whether or not bots are coming to your site looking for answers from users. It allows you to see, whether or not you're being surfaced in queries on ChatGPT, on Claude, on Perplexity, on Gemini. And, with these tools, this helps you to see whether or not you're visible in the first place, and whether or not, you're already doing pretty good and you need to move quickly, or you need to sort of, get yourself together, but not panic, or whether you're out of the running and there's other people who are already much further ahead of you. So that's something to think about. So have a look at the addressable market, go into your GA4 and have a look at how many people are coming to your site from those tools in the first place. But then I think it's worth not just querying the bots for the sake of, competitiveness, but actually doing some of the due diligence and doing some of the work to fill in some of those gaps. So if you find that you're looking up, I don't know, let's say you have a pie shop. I'm just throwing that out. So let's say you have a pie shop and you find that you go on to ChatGPT and you say, does Crystal's Pie Shop sell blueberry pies? And they're like, no, it doesn't. Well, if I do sell blueberry pies, why don't they think I sell blueberry pies? What is the issue that is blocking them from understanding that information? Is it that I don't have it listed on my website properly? Is it that, the web page where people can order blueberry pies says that it's out of stock? Is it that somebody mentioned it on some page somewhere? What's going on there? It's important to understand why the chatbots are saying what they're saying. And you can do this in a couple of ways. One really good way is to go onto Perplexity, and there's something called Perplexity Pages. We have an article on the AI Search Lab, which is wix.com. I've mentioned it a few times, so I'll just drop the URL here. It's wix.com/studio/AI Search Lab, like AI-search lab. If you search AI Search Lab Wix, you'll find us. And we have an article from Maddie Osman, which talks about ranking on Perplexity. And one of the things you can do is you can create a page on Perplexity. And what happens is that Perplexity will spin up a page and they'll pull up lots of resources. This isn't the same as a query. A query, you ask a question and they will answer however they want. If you were to put in something like Crystal's blueberry pies are fantastic, it will create a narrative around that. And you can see how they're justifying that claim. And you can see, and if you say Crystal's blueberry pies are terrible, then you would also see how they're justifying those claims. So it's a way that you can see gaps in the information that's available for you on the web, and that the tools are using to discover information about you. And this is really important because for some of these things, it can be tricky to change. So a lot of the tools are using various different types of retrieval for information. So there's the training data retrieval, which a classic one, if we're still sticking with blueberry pies, if I were to say, can you give me a recipe for a blueberry pie? They're not going to go on the web to look that up. Within the training data that, Gemini or ChatGPT has, they can put together a blueberry pie recipe. They know what blueberries are. They know what the cake is, the crust is and all that stuff. They don't need to look that up. If they wanted to know, what's Crystal Carter's blueberry pie recipe, they would specifically go to a website to look that up. And that's a RAG retrieval. If you were to ask a more nuanced question, like is Crystal Carter's blueberry pie healthy for somebody who is recovering from doing a marathon and is lactose intolerant or something, right? So that has lots of different caveats. It's got lots of different elements to that thing. And when you ask queries like that, it triggers something called a mixture of experts response, which basically will pull in lots of different subject networks, and they will portion your question into a bunch of different sections. They'll look some of it in their training data, some of it will be from the web, and then they'll reason it all together to give the person a response. When you see that happen with your content, it gives you a lot of insights into how they're presenting your brand, how your brand is visible online, and it also helps you to identify where you can improve. And it's also helps you guide the kind of content that you should be creating. So for instance, if your goal is to be more cited on LLMs, then maybe you should have more content that is the kinds of content that needs to be retrieved, rather than the kinds of content that they would have in their training data. So if I just have a general blueberry pie recipe, that's not really gonna get me into an LLM. However, if I have something that's very specific, it may very well get me into maybe I did a report on why blueberry pies are the best pies or something to that effect, or maybe I have an opinion piece on why blueberry pies are the best pies or something to that effect. But depending on your goals, you need to have a look at your content to make sure that it aligns with that, and also look at your web presence to make sure that aligns with that.
So a lot of talk about pies and potatoes, and I don't think you've had your breakfast yet, but in relation to what you were saying about potatoes, actually, you said that perhaps potato people aren't on ChatGPT, but what if they are on there in 6 months' time? What if people start searching for the best potato to actually make chip potatoes or whatever they search for in 6 months' time? Shouldn't we actually be trying to optimize for the likely search behavior of users in 6 months' time to make sure that we're not left behind?
Yeah. I am team get ready so you don't have to stay ready. That's the I'm all about that. No, sorry, stay ready so you don't have to get ready. That's the phrase. So I'm all about that. If you're in the potato area, then you could potentially have first mover advantage as people become more attuned to these tools. We're starting to see more and more corporate teams. I think Citi recently announced that they're making everyone do prompt training, for instance. And as we roll out Google Workspace, people are going to be more having Gemini in their workspace every day. We've Copilot in your workspace every day, and people are going to be more used to being AI native, both at work and on their phones. So the Google Pixel, for instance, the Pixel 10 has Gemini baked into it. They've added Gemini to smartwatches as well, and so people are going to become more and more AI native. So the other thing that's useful is that if you are in the sort of, low market saturate or low market take up area, like if your sector doesn't have lots of people taking up AI just yet, this means that you have time to learn, right? So I would say that it means that you don't need to panic necessarily, but you do need to prepare. That's something as a speaker I heard of Brighton SEO said that, and I think that that's really worth thinking about. So yeah, I think that you should absolutely look to prepare, and you should absolutely, be reading and getting involved and testing and iterating and tracking the traffic. But I think that it also comes down to making sure that you are being efficient about it. So some people are saying, it's all or nothing. I only use AI. I never use Google. Or people are saying Google forever. The AI isn't doing anything. And I don't think it's that. I don't think it's that at all. Because when you have those training data responses, which Gemini does it a lot, I'll specifically ask for a website or a product name or something, and they don't give me a link. And then I have to go to Google to get the link. So there's definitely a process where they overlap. And I think that it's, we're in very, very early days, but if you are active and you're involved, then you're going to be able to move quicker when you need to move quicker.
Crystal, what's the key takeaway from the tip you shared today?
Get involved. My key takeaway is get involved and assess your brand. And I think don't look at the gaps that you see in AI as a problem necessarily. Look at them as an opportunity to improve the way that your brand is communicated online, to improve the way that your brand is visible online, to build more connections with users, and to build more bridges to your domain and your business.
Crystal Carter is head of AI search and SEO communications at Wix. Find out more over at wix.com/studio/AI-search-lab. Crystal, thanks so much for being part of SEO in 2026.
Thank you.
I've been your host, David Bain. Get your copy of SEO in 2026, the book, over at seoin2026.com.